It's 8 o'clock. This is the UK Tonight. Coming up, we need proper answers, not quick ones. A message for the government from the parents of Nottingham attacks victim Grace O'Malley-Kumar. They've been in Westminster today with the parents of Barnaby Webber to tell the Justice Minister and the Shadow Home Secretary that the only way to establish the facts of their murders and hold people to account is a public inquiry. We'll be hearing from Grace's mum Sinead and dad Sanjoy in just a moment. Also tonight, the father of a young girl who took her own life after cyberbullying explains why he doesn't support a smartphone ban in schools. 14-year-old Mia Janin had been bullied online by classmates, but her dad says children must be taught to use phones responsibly, not barred from having them altogether. Plus, tonight we'll hear from the Jewish professional footballer facing abuse from supporters of his own team over the war in Gaza. And from the Highlands all the way to Cornwall, a surprise Sunday night spectacular from the Northern Lights. All that to come and much more on the UK Tonight. Hello. The parents of Grace O'Malley-Kumar have been telling the government that they need proper answers, not quick ones. And the only way to investigate the Nottingham attacks, to learn the lessons and to hold people to account for their failings is through a public inquiry. Grace, her friend Barnaby Webber and school caretaker Ian Coates were murdered by paranoid schizophrenic Valdo Calicane in Nottingham last year. He was sentenced to an indefinite hospital order in January. Grace and Barnaby's parents were in Westminster today to meet Justice Minister Laura Farris, as well as Shadow Home Secretary Yvette Cooper. Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer has joined calls for a public inquiry, and Grace's parents, Sinead and Sanjoy, told me this afternoon that such an inquiry is the only way to establish the full circumstances and get justice for their loved ones.
Our tragedy has happened, and what we want now is justice, and what we want is a robust investigation. We literally want every stone turned over in terms of what happened, and we want answers. We want people who are responsible, held to justice, and we want, we don't want this ever to happen again. We've always said that from the beginning. We've lost our loved ones, and we're completely heartbroken. But the reason we go on is because this is justice for Grace, and this is actually something that no family should ever go through. So we are going to continue till we have improvements, till we find people who didn't do their jobs properly. Yeah. And there are so many holes that are emerging now, even from the beginning of the investigations and from news agencies as well.
Sinead, you have the ear of the government, you have an official point of contact. Labour heavily involved as well, because at some point there may well be a change of government and you don't want all this hard work to slip through the cracks if there should be a change. What answers are you getting at this stage? What pledges are you getting at this stage?
Well, this isn't a party political issue. This is an issue that this is a public safety issue, and it's an issue for all of government. And obviously you've rightly alluded to the fact that it's an election year, and this isn't a story that's going to be lost with one government and a changeover of power. We need to keep up the momentum. And similarly, we don't want to be having to visit every Minister for Justice every time there's a change of government to remind them about an individual who is potentially a danger to the public and a public safety issue. So, ultimately, we have been reassured we're being listened to. The proof will be in the pudding. Ultimately, we've always said as well that we would have preferred an overarching bird's eye view at the public inquiry so that all of the different agencies could be interlinked and communicate with each other. At the moment, everything seems a little bit disjointed and everyone has their specific remit, but there's not an awful lot of joined-up thinking. So that would be our preference, because otherwise we feel like we're just chasing it ourselves. We're chasing every investigation ourselves. We're chasing every agency ourselves.
And I think what is encouraging is that Keir Starmer has promised that I think this needs to be covered via a public inquiry, because it is siloed, and to bring all the agencies together and to learn lessons and to improve services for people, it is going to take a public inquiry, and he backs that. And we're very reassured by the fact that he backs a public inquiry.
Have you had that pledge from the government, from the Prime Minister, for a public inquiry?
No.
No, we haven't as yet, no.
And is that something
No,
that
but
you'll keep pushing for?
Well, he has said that he hadn't
totally
ruled it out. So it will remain to be seen, I suppose, the outcome of the specific investigations and various reviews, whether or not they're joined up. So we'll just have to wait and see. That one, I suppose, will have to play itself out. But ultimately, that's what we would like. We would like a single overarching, member of the judiciary or whatever would require to have a joined up, because ultimately the police work with the CPS, the NHS and the mental health care work with the police. They're all linked, and failings in any one jurisdiction can impact on the management carried out by the other agencies, such as the CPS and the police and things like that. So we do feel it's more joined up thinking should be looked at.
Yeah, I think that is the phrase, Sinead. You've summed it up perfectly, joined up thinking, because going into this and uncovered what you have about the steps leading up to the taking of your daughter's life and the steps after that, there were gaps, there wasn't joined up thinking, and that happened from the get-go, a mixture of human error and gaps between services. I'd be interested to hear what government officials said to you about what kind of structure there is and whether they're acknowledging the fact that these gaps exist and they can, as in the case of your daughter, prove fatal.
Absolutely.
Well, whilst these inquiries happen, I think what is going to happen is it'll become abundantly clear, as you've said, the gaps will become much more imminent to them. And I think they'll be able to see exactly where the services failed our children and failed in codes. I think that's really important, because what is going to happen is that each and every one of these lines of inquiry is going to show some glaring holes, glaring mistakes. And we need, of course we need to learn from them, but for us, we also need to hold people responsible for them. In this day and age, I think people need to take responsibility for the actions of their services. Yeah. So I think it is important that ministers and the government hold people responsible.
Yeah, well, I mean, our daughter's never coming back. We're not in any rush. And I think that's, when we went to 10 Downing Street, the Prime Minister said, we want to get answers for you quickly. We don't need answers quickly. We need it done properly.
This is a long process for you. You're in it for the long haul until you get it right, the government get it right. Can I just ask how you both are? I mean, I'm sure no day is ever okay. Some are more bearable than others. But how are you as a family right now?
We
are heartbroken.
We are heartbroken. We aren't brilliant. Every time you have to go, we shouldn't have to go through what we're going through. We shouldn't have to, in a way, nearly investigate these matters ourselves, practically. And it's really tough. It's really hard on us. It takes its toll. And on top of that, we have another child who we have to think about all of the time and think about his mental health. It's very, very hard. And I really wish we didn't have this burden on top of what we're having to face. We should just be left alone to grieve. And unfortunately, circumstances have been so bad for us that we've not had that chance. And here we are, trying to get true justice for our daughter and Barnaby and Ian.
We just feel that we ultimately, the way things panned out, we feel that nothing has been proven to us. We feel there's been areas that have been lacking. We've mentioned it before, and we're repeating ourselves, but things like basic toxicology, lack of even a breathalyzer for somebody who's using a van as an instrument of death.
Mental health assessments in
lack
custody.
of mental health assessments, contemporaneous mental health assessments. We never disputed a diagnosis of paranoid schizophrenia, but ultimately this is a person who completed a degree and was clearly able to focus and complete his academic studies. But we just feel that there were some gaps, and we would like to have been reassured And we also feel there's obviously been some sliding door moments in the past that could have changed the course of the last 2-3 years, and certainly what happened on the 13th of June last year.
And what we're finding out is there are more and more of these moments where the course of this person could have been changed, but neither did the police or the mental health services take those opportunities. And that is really, really unfortunate for us.
Well, we thank you so much for your time, and we will speak again in the future because, as you said, there is much more to come. Sandra and Sinead, thank you for speaking to us here on the UK Tonight. We really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah.
Now, peers in the House of Lords have inflicted a series of defeats on the government's Rwanda bill tonight. The bill is now going to return to the Commons, where the amendments added in the Lords today will more than likely be removed by MPs. To explain it all, our chief political correspondent John Craig is standing by in Westminster. So take us through events, John.
The government's lost 5 votes tonight over the Safety of Rwanda bill, and by big majorities as well. It's the biggest rebellion and the biggest, heaviest defeat that Rishi Sunak suffered as Prime Minister in the House of Lords. The 5 votes, the first 2, the majority against the government was 102, then it went up to 110, then it was down to 87, and then it was 91. You have to go back to December to October of 2021 when Boris Johnson was Prime Minister, and there was a massive defeat for the government by 133. That was a row over sewage being dumped in rivers. But this, of course, is holding up the Rwanda plans of the government by passing so many amendments. They're debating it again on Wednesday. In fact, they're carrying on debating till the bill till 10 o'clock tonight, but they've finished voting for the evening. Now, as you say, the government will want to overturn these. The bill goes back to the Commons on Monday, the 18th of March. Then the ping pong starts. It'll go back to the Lords on the 19th. The rebels, well, they were really, many of them were ministers in the John Major's cabinet, Kenneth Clarke, John Gummer, Douglas Hogg. Another one was Lord Tugendhat, who's the uncle of Tom Tugendhat, the security minister, plus a 92-year-old hereditary peer, Viscount Eccles. Big majorities against the government, just shows how unpopular this is. All the amendments really are all about safeguards, giving the courts the chance to challenge this government's legislation and the claim being made by the government that Rwanda is a safe country. That's what the core of the debate's been about, this claim by the government that Rwanda is safe. That's been strongly disputed by peers, and they've won these votes with big majorities in the Lords tonight. I think the government might be a bit stunned by the size of those defeats, because they really are big majorities against the government.
John, thank you. John Craig with the latest on that from Westminster for us. Well, that story's sure to feature in tomorrow's newspapers. We have our extended press preview and news review for you from 10:30 tonight. Tonight's news and tomorrow's headlines on the way. Joining us will be The Sun's chief political correspondent, Jack Elsom, and The Guardian's political editor, Pippa Crerar. Now, all eyes will be on the Chancellor on Wednesday. It's when he delivers the final budget before a general election. Jeremy Hunt has stressed the need to act in a responsible way, which could mean disappointment for Tory MPs who want him to announce tax cuts. But what do voters actually want? Do they want lower taxes, or would they rather the government invested in public services? Our Deputy Political Editor, Sam Coates, has this report.
I would like to see something that would save me some money.
More money staying in our pockets.
I want a cut in tax, or NI, or both.
These are the voters the Tories want and need to win back. This online community voted Conservative in 2019, now telling Sky News what they want from the budget. So many demands, but one big problem.
We have no money, so I'm not really sure that Jeremy Hunt can do very much at all.
The Chancellor may need to manufacture a miracle, and even that won't satisfy everyone. Making a pre-budget visit to a factory with a clear message: don't expect too much.
So we do want to move to a lower taxed economy, but we're only going to do so in a way that is responsible and recognises that there are things that taxes pay for, that we couldn't cut taxes by borrowing. We'll do so in a responsible way. But if we can spend money on public services more efficiently, then that will mean less pressure on taxpayers.
It must be quite emotional for you.
This could be the last chance for the Prime Minister to dig his party out of its political hole. So there will be some tax cuts coming on Wednesday, likely to national insurance, and rows in government over whether to cut public spending to pay that bill.
Bingo. There we go.
Labour knows there's little money to spend and are determined to paint that as a Tory failure.
Whatever Mr Hunt announces, it won't make up for 14 years of economic failure under this Conservative government. They claim the economy has turned a corner, but they've driven it into a dead end.
The people in the building behind me know that Wednesday's budget needs to be a game changer. Yet, Jeremy Hunt is proposing tax cuts when polls suggest that a majority of the public want public spending increases. Why? Well, Sky News voter panel explains. It's a group of 2019 Tory voters, many of whom have now abandoned the party. But amongst that group, a majority want tax cuts.
When pushed, our panel say they'd prefer tax cuts over spending increases by a majority of 2 to 1. The government is listening to these people.
I'm sick of paying the government all my wages. It's ridiculous. All they do is waste my money.
Throwing more money into the public sector won't improve the services. It would just encourage even more waste.
I think income tax needs to have a cut to it because middle earners are being dragged into that higher tax bracket.
Last autumn, Jeremy Hunt's big gamble didn't move people like this. This week, can he win them back without pushing the rest of the country away? Sam Coates, Sky News, Westminster.
And full coverage of the budget from 11 o'clock on Wednesday morning right here on Sky News. Now, take a look at this. Police have released body cam footage of the moment officers rescue people from a fire in West London.
Stay down on the floor and cover the door! Control, this person's trapped on the second floor.
Well, this footage shows officers kicking down the front door of the building in Kensington on Friday morning. There were around 100 firefighters tackling the blaze. 6 residents and 7 police officers were treated for smoke inhalation and have since been discharged from hospital. A 25-year-old man appearing in court today after being charged with arson with intent to endanger life. Still to come on the UK tonight, we'll hear from a Jewish professional footballer who has become a target of hatred from supporters of his own team over the war in Gaza. And the Ferrari that was stolen from an F1 driver, which has turned up almost 3 decades later.
Morning, everybody. Today is all about the economy. The Chancellor could be a real game changer in the general election.
Will be the pre-election fireworks.
Big set-piece event of Budget Day, of course.
Whether it will be enough is the big question.
Some may soon be promised a little more money in their pocket as we head towards the election. But will these budget giveaways be enough to gain your vote? Full coverage on Sky News.
I'm Stuart Ramsey, and I'm Sky's chief correspondent. Well, there's a real sense now that people are beginning to expect that this whole airlift is coming to an end, and they're really, really desperate.
We saw snatch squads going in, grabbing people and putting them into trucks.
You either live and recover, or you die.
Okay, so that's like a war.
That's the war, yes.
We help you understand the world with us. Over the past 24 hours, the soldiers have been attacked on a number of occasions. It's really sending a clear message that Venezuela is eager for change. We've been crushed.
To take you to the heart of stories that shape our world. They were convinced the United States would become hooked. Well, they were right.
Well, enormous explosion has just come down. I think it was a monster that's just landed in between us.
The information on this could bring down the entire network, not just in Iraq and Syria, but across the world.
It's not out of control, but the withdrawn. It's so hot.
Hello, welcome back. You're watching the UK Tonight. Here's what's on the way. I'm going to speak to a Northern Lights hunter after a dazzling display across the country last night, from the Highlands to Cornwall. And celebrating 200 years of the RNLI, almost 150,000 lives saved. But first, the captain of Wycombe Wanderers has been telling Sky News that he has become a target for hatred and needed a security escort into his own stadium because of Israel's war with Hamas. Joe Jacobson is one of the only Jewish professional footballers here in the UK. He's played for Wycombe for a decade, but the club had to face down calls to cut ties with him. Well, he's been speaking to our sports correspondent, Rob Harris, who's with me in the studio now. Rob, this is quite a remarkable interview, your sit-down with Joe Jacobson. What did he have to say to you?
Well, he spoke about feeling quite isolated in the game at time, how football authorities have overlooked anti-Semitism for so long, and the fact that it has brought the October 7 attacks and the concerning fallout, particularly for the Jewish community, that has shone a light on the need to focus on anti-Jewish hatred at times within the game. And he's not someone who's posted a lot about particularly the Israel-Gaza conflict, in fact, not at all, just briefly on some concerns about Palestinian protests that took place. But that was enough for him to receive a lot of abuse, as he's been explaining to me.
The club got sent some emails and letters demanding I apologise, demanding that if I didn't, they would barricade the gates at Adams Park on a match day. There was some plainclothes security that were kind of watching out and looking for anything. And fortunately, there was nothing happened. But you know, I'm just going to a place of work, and there's people worried about something that might happen, and that can't be right. There was fans that would message, or so-called fans that messaged in saying that he shouldn't be playing for this club or be captain of this football club. And I think that those things weren't there before. I think since October, these things are happening.
And Rob, this is something that will affect not just his professional working life, but his personal life as well. What kind of support has he had?
Well, certainly he's had support from the club. They've stood by him. But he talks about the wider concerns in London as he perceives some of the atmosphere that we've obviously had reflected in some of the rising anti-Semitism in broader society too. And that's also borne out in some data we have from Kick It Out, the football discrimination organisation. It says there's been a 5-fold increase in anti-Semitic incidents in football from the top level to the grassroots in the first half of this season compared to last year. Now, they do point as well to a quadrupling in Islamophobic abuse in the game. So it's certainly a wide concern about faith-based abuse within football. We see it on social media, we see it in stadiums, fan on fan, and in grassroots where, and Joe Jacobson has been to visit one of the teams, some Jewish players faced oppositions refusing to play against them in recent months. So that is something that really has been problematic. And there's a sense in the Jewish community, and Joe Jacobson reflects in this, that there hasn't been enough solidarity, and we saw that quite visibly when the Wembley Arch wasn't lit immediately after the Hamas attacks in Israel. And, you know, he's been talking about how that response by the FA made him feel.
You know, there has been apologies and there has been, you know, a new task force put in place and that I've been involved in. And so there is progress, and maybe it's taken something like this to create that. And all of a sudden now there's a task force in place from the FA that wasn't there before. So there is positives to come out of it somehow, that, you know, there is now a means for anti-Semitism to be looked at in a way that it probably wasn't before.
Well, as Joe's talking about that, you know, the real-life consequences of this, and you talk about the anti-Jewish sentiment, you know, on the rise within the game, and also Islamophobia. So they're the real-life consequences. Where's the action plan from the authorities?
Well, the Football Association have started a new anti-racism task force, particularly looking at anti-Semitism, and Joe Jacobson is on that committee. Interestingly, he says over the years, often he's been the person that they go to ask things like approve a statement, which shows how few Jewish people there are within professional football. And that really highlights how he felt that actually anti-Semitism was overlooked by the football authorities. So he's certainly hoping things like when tweets are sent out by players, he's got concern that there has been inconsistencies of approaches when the FA have perhaps clamped down on some forms of racism and discrimination, but they have overlooked some tweets perhaps that could be viewed as anti-Semitic, and there hasn't been the FA action. So he's hoping that this does bring about a change. And he does see some positivity from how the FA now are dealing with the sort of fallout from, so they would see the mistakes over the arch and acknowledging that issues for the Jewish community within football is perhaps borne out by how so few Jewish players there are from Britain in professional football, as we often talk about how there are so few, say, British Asians within football as well here professionally.
OK, Rob, thank you. Rob Harris, reflecting on his interview with the Wycombe Wanderers captain Joe Jacobson. Thank you. Still to come here on the UK Tonight. Calls for children to be taught how to use mobile phones responsibly. Those calls have come from the father of 14-year-old Mia Janin, who took her own life after experiencing cyberbullying. I'm going to speak to him next. Hello, welcome back to the UK Tonight. Now, next, a father whose daughter took her own life after she was bullied online. He says that cyberbullying should be made a specific crime to protect children. But banning smartphones in schools isn't the answer. 14-year-old Mia Jamin died in March 2021. She had been targeted on social media by classmates, and she took her own life the day after returning to school following the lifting of lockdown restrictions. In the UK, there is currently no specific law on bullying or cyberbullying, with the courts instead relying on other legislation around harassment and malicious communications. Well, Mia's father, Mariano, joins me here in the studio. Mariano, good to see you. Thank you so much for coming in to talk to us about such an important issue for every parent, and it's something that you're tackling head-on. Cyberbullying as a specific crime, why do you think that is needed?
Well, we need a legislation, or it's because it's terrible. It's, you know, you get bullied after school, relentless, no stop, and not by one, by a whole group of peers. So it's a really difficult subject to tackle. As I said before, I don't think banning a phone is a good thing. It's to get the right legislation, first of all, to put the companies that work with social media with some boundaries. It's not true that they are only carriers of the information. They should check the information, they should filter what is not right, report what is wrong. That's, I think, one of the ways that we can protect our kids.
It's about responsible usage, because that's what the government were talking about a couple of weeks ago. They were talking about the fact that smartphones should be banned in school. That's how you can protect children. But the world has changed, right? Since you and I were young, a smartphone is part and parcel of everyday life, and those who are getting smartphones are younger. And you think it's about educating children about just how dangerous these things can be and how to use them in good faith.
And also put legal boundaries to the companies, and to learn how to use it. It's a tool, it's a good tool, a mobile phone. I used to get to know where Mia was when she was alive through the mobile phone as well, or communicate. Banning is not the right answer, but that's why, in my opinion, we need to create a safer space and for telephones and for the use of the internet.
The new online safety bill came in at the back end of last year, and that was welcomed as the first step. You know, technology is changing all the time, and the thought was that this was the first step and the law will evolve to keep up with changing technology. Technology is moving a lot faster than the law.
Well, we have a new player that's in artificial intelligence. That's different animal that we will need to deal after. But yes, as you say, it's a good.
Because in this new online safety bill, things like cyber flashing, for example, were put in there. But you're talking about cyberbullying, and that's something that every child who has a smartphone will have experience of. If it hasn't been done directly to them, if they haven't perpetrated it, they may have seen it used towards their classmates. So is this something you think should be the next thing to come in as part of this all-encompassing, you know, online safety bill? Is that the next thing you need to see added urgently?
Well, listen, the online safety bill need to be just on working. It's incredible that we have a group of parents that, you know, put all the effort to understand and produce this package of new online safety bill.
Yeah.
And I think the politicians need to follow these people and support.
It's interesting you say that. It's the parents who have been victims here, who push for these changes. You're referencing, I'm presuming, the father of Molly Russell, Ian, who pushed really hard for that online safety bill, you know, holding social media firms to account. Recently, we've spoken to the mother of Brianna Jai, Esther, who's calling for smartphone age limits. You're now calling for cyberbullying as a specific crime. How disappointed are you that it is parents who have been through the very worst? You know, you should have been protected from this. It's you that's pushing for change, and the government appear to be playing catch-up.
listen, I'm pushing for a change that I will not get the benefit. Mia is not here. But I can understand that other kids are suffering and other parents can be in my same place. And it's something that we can do it. It's just we need people to understand what we are getting with this online safety bill. And we need the politicians to understand that this is a change that people are asking for this change. It's not a political movement, it's a necessity that we have.
Yeah, it's protecting children.
And
there are so many worried parents. Do you think there are parents that are sleepwalking into this? You talk about, I hear the argument a lot. It's a discussion that's going on in my household at the moment. You need to give a young child a phone to track them, know where they are, to be able to communicate with them, to make sure that they're safe. But the other side of it is this mobile phone is a window into the whole world.
Yes.
And in real life, you would walk them through that and you would protect them from certain elements of it. That's the flip side to it.
The reality is that we use a phone just to communicate, music sometimes, email, music. But the kids use the phone in a different way. They don't need a manual instruction. In the very intuitive way, they go through the phone and probably they use 80% of the potential. We just use 20% of the potential. It's part of their world, a world that we don't really know where are the limits and where they can get in or not.
There are parents that aren't perhaps overly concerned by this. There are parents that are. And there are parents who may be worried about their child being the victim of cyberbullying, but would never dream that their child may be the perpetrator.
Yeah.
Have you ever sat down with the parents of the boys that bullied Mia online?
No.
Would you want to? Because we talk about educating people to use phones responsibly, and it starts with the parents. Schools and the government can only do so much.
I would like the accountability for what's happened to Mia. That's my real desire here. I'm doing this for Mia, for Marisa, my wife. Actually, that was my wife fight. I'm just trying to do it in my own way.
And your wife passed away after your daughter.
I don't even know what can they say to me.
What would you say to parents who are watching this interview? Because again, I go back to the fact that parents will be looking out on the phone to make sure their child isn't being bullied, but may not be aware that their child is the bully. And that is an uncomfortable conversation to have with a child. But that is how the children are getting into this situation. Children can be cruel, and they're particularly cruel online when there's some level of detachment and anonymity.
I said this before, it's, we choose a good school for our kids, we send the kids to the school, but we need to know they will only get the good curricula in the school. Education is coming from home with an example. So they should understand this kindness, lots of, all values that we have when we grow up. And I don't know if I have a bad luck with the school or what's happened in Mia's case, but it's a big thing that we are dealing. It's bullying, it's cyberbullying,
Do you feel like you're taking this all on your own shoulders, Maria? Because I'm conscious that you've lost Mia, you lost your wife soon afterwards.
Yeah.
And as you said, you've picked up the mantle from your wife.
Yeah.
You were doing it together and now you're doing it on your own.
Yes.
How are you coping? Is this what's keeping you going? Because I was speaking to the parents of Grace O'Malley Kumar, who was killed in the Nottingham attacks, and they said, we really want to be grieving, but this is our fight. We have to do this because we're not getting the answers, we're not getting the change. It's up to us to do it. And I feel like you're doing something similar for your daughter.
Well, we need the answer. Answers is justice so that we can get closure. Of course, me and Marisa will be always in my mind and in my heart. They were not coming back. Maybe one day, if I can produce a change, I can get justice, I will get closure and I will be able to start a new life. I really don't know. I'm an old guy as well, not very young, but I would like to do something, and I think that as a society we need to adjust the things in order to have a better life and to keep the young people safe.
Well, in your daughter and your wife's name, you're doing good work in pushing for change. Thank you for coming in to talk to us about it. And I really hope to speak to you in the future when things have moved and we are getting somewhere with a change in the law for cyberbullying to protect other children.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mariana. Thank you. Now, the Royal National Lifeboat Institution has celebrated its 200th anniversary today. In that time, the RNLI has saved 146,277 lives. While much has changed in 200 years, two things have remained the same: the charity's dependence on volunteers and contributions from the public, which have funded the service for the past 2 centuries. Our North of England correspondent Shingi Marike has this report.
For 2 centuries, the RNLI has represented the best in Britain. The team rushing to a rescue in Whitby. 100 years on, change has swept through the shores of this town on the northeast coast. But that lifeboat service is still here, showing the same spirit. We joined the RNLI team here on a training exercise aboard their multi-million-pound Shannon-class vessel, funded entirely by donations. The technology on board is top of the range, but the crew embody an old ethos, one of wanting to help their community.
Come further around now to 3-0-0.
Taking part in this mock-up of a man overboard scenario is 21-year-old Max, one of the station's youngest volunteers.
It's pretty busy, so I work 7 till 5 Monday to Friday, so that means I'm on service from 5:30 at night till 5:30 in the morning, plus weekends. It can be quite busy because, like on Friday, for example, I got in the house at 5:30. My tea was on the side warm. As I was about to eat, we got called out, so I had to leave my tea there, straight to the station, and I got home at about 7 o'clock. So it was a long day, but at the same time, very rewarding.
Teams are now called out to powered boats, paddle boards, and more, while mental health call-outs are more common.
The RNLI started out as fishermen called to save people from shipwrecks. 200 years later, the volunteers are from all walks of life. One thing that has stayed the same, though, is the close connection they have to the communities they serve. Steady up, board, steady up!
Those rescues can be moments of real jeopardy, like this.
You okay?
2 rowers clinging onto their boat, which had capsized on the North Sea. Emma, who was saved that day, is not only grateful to be alive, but determined to give back.
I've now been inspired to actually become a volunteer here at the RNLI, so I'm going to be volunteering as a water safety advisor. And I think now for both myself and Tom and our families, the RNLI, are a big part of our lives. The reason that we are here is because of them.
Her story is like so many others. Lives have not only been touched by this charity, but saved by it, which is why on these shores and across the country, the RNLI continues to matter. Shingi Marike, Sky News, Whitby.
UK police have recovered a rare Ferrari that belonged to former F1 driver Gerhard Berger. It was stolen at a Grand Prix almost 30 years ago. Well, it was only one of 501 ever made. It was stolen while Berger competed at San Marino in 1995. It was stolen along with a matching vehicle that belonged to his teammate, John Alessi. Berger reportedly saw the whole theft unfolding and he tried to give chase in his friend's Volkswagen Golf. Unsurprisingly, he did not catch up with the thieves. The Met Police say the car was shipped to Japan shortly after it was stolen and it was brought to the UK late last year. Officers were alerted by Ferrari after checks were carried out ahead of the car being sold to a buyer in America. Coming up on the UK Tonight, the dazzling display across the country last night as the Northern Lights lit up the UK. And we'll try to make sense of what the new UEFA club competition formats mean with our sports presenter David Garrido.
trust in politics is at an all-time low. What's going wrong and can we fix it? I'll be hosting a new weekly podcast with two powerhouses of British politics, Labour MP Jess Phillips and Conservative peer Ruth Davidson. We'll work out who's on top and who's having an electoral dysfunction. Available every Friday wherever you get your podcasts.
So we got some of the most amazing British classic dishes which we were doing at the Oscars. So we got a beautiful lobster fish and chips, bit of tartar sauce, and we've even put the classic British fork, which the Americans love.
Yeah.
Naturally.
So this is all food for the after party?
Yes, so the governor's ball. So they go to the actual Oscars, they get their award, and they go up the stairs to the governor's ball, which they'll get these dishes.
OK.
We've also got the prawn cocktail roll, which is served in a soft brioche, sort of 3-biter.
Amazing.
A little bit of caviar for the
Yeah.
Oscars.
Yeah.
So, last of all, we've got the amazing Wagyu roasted Yorkshire pudding, roast beef, creamed horseradish and watercress, and it is absolutely amazing. So hopefully they like it.
Oh, I'm sure they will. How
Yeah.
do you decide on the menus? Or which one should I try first? Can I try?
Oh, you can try one, yeah. Probably the prawn cocktail roll to start, yeah.
Amazing.
There you go.
Thank you. I'm going to have... Do you want some?
Go for it, yeah.
Do you want a prawn?
Yeah, go on then. I'll have a
One of you.
There you go. So it's a little bit of Mary Rose sauce.
OK.
Keeping it as classic as possible. Thanks. Hopefully they love it, but
Yeah.
let's see.
So, but, I mean, they've got the fancy frocks on and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, everything had to be taken into consideration.
Notice I said the caviar for me.
Oh, yeah, the big piece. Yeah, well, why not? Why not?
And how many covers are you doing? Like, what's the scale of this?
It is actually enormous. It's around 2,000 people. And there's like a huge, huge queue. And I'm looking, I'm like, surely that's not the queue for this stall. Because there's like 10 stands within this governor's ball. It's like ballroom. And there's just queues and queues of people. But we were quite popular because we were doing the British food. And the Americans love fish and chips and all that kind of thing. So it was super, super, super popular. Couldn't keep up, obviously. But, you know, carried on, carried on. There's only 3 chefs on that front desk. So...
Which big names made it to your stall? That's
Yeah, great question.
Wow, there were so many amazing people. And, I mean, for me, Brendan Fraser, obviously, he had won the Oscar last year. And he was so lovely. Lady Gaga was amazing. This is the
Wagyu,
best one.
isn't it?
Yeah, this is the Wagyu beef.
Yeah.
And we roast the Yorkshire pudding in a little bit of Wagyu fat, so it gives it that sort of shine and crunch. It's a lot more sort of luxurious than normal.
Right.
But it's delicious.
And do they come back for more? Do you have to say you've already had yours?
They do, and some people will be asking, can I have extra beef, and being cheeky, but that's all good.
Hello, welcome back to the UK Tonight. Coming up, we'll speak to a Northern Lights hunter about the dazzling display in UK skies last night. But first, David Garrido is here with the sport. Did you see the Northern Lights last night?
I did. Joe, I saw lots of pictures in the weather reports this morning that looked absolutely incredible.
Yeah,
but I
we
didn't see
wake
them
up to the
myself.
highlights. I mean, you should really get a bit of warning before the Northern Lights come to town.
I did notice I could see the constellations quite clearly. Oh, look, there's Orion's belt, there's the plough. That was about it. I don't know anymore. But,
I mean, you know more than me. OK, well, I'll get more with our expert in a few minutes' time. But we're going to talk about football, more of it on the way. European football's governing body, UEFA, today announces changing to the formats of the Champions League, Europa League and the Conference League from next season. What does it all mean?
Yeah, I don't know if you remember when the Nations League was announced and it was this all really confusing kind of format and all the rest of it, and we all went, hang on, what's all...
Yeah, it's
now
like
that we get used to it...
Get a bit of paper and a pen out.
Yeah. This is a lot clearer. So at the moment, we've got 32 teams in the Champions League, 8 groups of 4, top 2 go through, knockout, fine.
We all get that one.
We all get that one. They're adding 4 more teams, so 36 teams, but they're not in groups. They're in one big league, of which the top 8 go through to the last 16, and then others beneath them then play off to join them, and they make a last 16, and then it's knockout. And what it means, actually, when you're increasing the number of teams, is that, therefore, leagues like the Premier League get the chance to have an extra spot. At the moment, we've got 4 in the Premier League, but we're going to get a 5th if English teams perform well in this season's competitions. So that's the likes of City and Arsenal in the Champions League, Liverpool, Brighton, West Ham in the Europa League and Aston Villa in the Europa Conference League. So as long as they carry on doing well and progressing, then they could get that 5th place. So that's good news for teams like, say, Spurs, for example, who want to qualify 5th because it's perhaps the way that they will get through. And it also alleviates concerns that for those bigger clubs, they want more games, they want more revenue, that UEFA is listening, they are moving in that direction and trying to prevent them from breaking away and forming their own kind of competition. So those are the, in brief, the announcements been made on UEFA changing their top competitions in club football.
It's always good news, in my opinion.
Well, there we are. There we are. And not just football, lots of other stories making the sporting headlines this evening.
This Sky News Sports Bulletin is brought to you by Vitality. Getting more people more active. Live life with Vitality.
Now, this signifies a corner, OK? I don't want this and I don't want that. I need the hand up here, OK? That is contested.
It's school on a Sunday, but nobody's complaining, because the lesson is the laws of the game and the classroom is Villa Park. The FA wants to find 1,000 new black, Asian and mixed heritage referees from different communities around the country. It's part of the reflective and representative campaign.
We want to increase the pool of referees from these communities at a grassroots level, with the hope that in the future that these individuals can then go through the refereeing progression pathway and then eventually referee within the Women's Super League and in the Premier League. Historically, maybe the interest wasn't there, but actually we haven't probably done enough to actually showcase what refereeing is about.
You're going to go there and blow the whistle and give a direct free kick.
A lot of challenges that people talked about, the themes were, referee courses were too expensive, and that's why we've employed a bursary scheme as part of this campaign.
You two go.
Going into grassroots football and going into it as a referee, with all the other challenges that I have, the other added challenge will be the discrimination angle.
You need to blow the whistle and put your hand like this. It's got to be like this on every single cone.
The achievements of Sam Allison, Rebecca Welsh and Sunny Singill have highlighted the importance of role models and mentors within refereeing, with new refs coming through having people to aspire to.
This Sky News Sports Bulletin is brought to you by Vitality.
Right, let's take a look at the weather.
Warm memories wherever you go. The weather, sponsored by Qatar Airways.
It's going to turn drier and more settled this week and milder. Northern and central Scotland and eastern England mainly dry this evening, but you can expect some blustery showers in the southwest and outbreaks of rain elsewhere. Northern and eastern Britain will have a spell of rain tonight, but that's going to become confined to eastern coastal counties later. Most places then looking dry and clear with mist and fog developing over central and southern parts. Ireland, Northern Ireland and the Channel counties could expect blustery showers. They'll be heavy, frequent and prolonged over central parts of Ireland. It's going to be chilly but mostly frost-free. Eastern Britain will see that early rain largely clearing tomorrow morning, perhaps lingering over North East Scotland and East Anglia, while the north of Ireland and Northern Ireland will see showery rain clearing through. Most other places fine, but expect a few showers mainly in the south and northwest.
The weather, sponsored by Qatar Airways.
Now, we know that, you know that we like to leave you with something weird and wonderful here on the UK Tonight. Turns out the weird is me this evening, sorry about that. Tonight we're talking about the Northern Lights. Were you lucky enough to see them dazzling up above the skies of the UK? They're only occasionally visible from the UK, but yesterday they were seen right across the country, from the Scottish Highlands to as far south as Cornwall. Here are some snaps from Scotland. They were also visible in Wales. Here they are seen from the top of a snow-covered Pen y Fan, the highest peak in the Brecon Beacons. And we've got some snaps from Flintshire as well. These were taken by Mark Griffiths. He travelled from Crewe to Talca Beach with 25 other Northern Light hunters to see the aurora. I didn't know there was such a thing as the Northern Lights Hunters Group, but we're just about to meet one of them, Mark. He joins me now on the line. Hello, Mark.
Hiya, you all right?
Yeah, I'm good. How are you? What a night you had last night. Talk me through it.
Very stressful, put it that way, because obviously I've got a lot of people who, in my mind, are relying on me to just get it right, basically, for them. So luckily last night it paid off and we had an amazing show. It was, wow. It's one of the best ones that I've seen for a long time in Britain itself. We had a good storm back in December, but in my view, in my mind, this was a much better because you actually saw it to naked eye, basically.
I mean, Mark, the pictures that you took are stunning, and we know that photographs never capture just how wonderful vistas like that can be. Did you give other people the heads up? Because I didn't know anything about it. How far in advance do you know that the Northern Lights may be appearing above the UK? Because it doesn't happen that often.
No, it's solar maximum time. It's very tricky to predict. So you can predict it during the daytime. I normally go from, it depends what comes in from the sun, really, because you've got filaments and everything hitting, you see. So I knew deep down about 2 o'clock in the afternoon yesterday that it was going to start hitting the UK. I got my group ready. I've got a Northern Lights group in Cheshire. Now, you say Cheshire, you'd think you wouldn't have a chance of seeing it there.
I bet that WhatsApp group is normally pretty quiet.
It's gone absolutely crazy on the Facebook page the last couple of days. So I got them all ready yesterday. There was quite a lot there, and I don't know why, but I was driving there and I just knew something special was going to happen. I don't know why. I just had that feeling. It was the best night for a long time.
Oh, but that's because you are a seasoned Northern Light hunter. I love the fact that, you know, when you set up there in Cheshire, people had a little laugh at your expense. Who's laughing now? I bet your Facebook membership is going to go up quite a few numbers because you're the man who knows how to see the Northern Lights. You don't have to travel to Iceland or Norway to see them, do you?
Do you know what? I go to Iceland a lot, and last night was probably the same scale as Iceland on a normal night. That's how good it was. So, do you know what? It's strange to actually in how it all works, and you have to be there to see it to believe it. Because I can say you can see it with the naked eye. People say no, you can't, but it's.
Well, listen, Mark. A special night, and for those of you who saw it, who stayed up late enough to see it, I slept through it all, which is just so typical, but as I have a toddler, it's probably better for me. Mark, thank you, and thank you for sharing your pictures. Mark Griffiths there, Northern Light Hunters. That's all from the UK tonight. We're back tomorrow night. Yalda Hakeem is up next with The World.